For years, there's been this big, powerful vision of the future, right? The electric vehicle. It's been sold to us as this clean, quiet revolution on our roads. And honestly, millions of people all over the world have already bought in. And I mean, why wouldn't they? The promise was so compelling. You've got these silent, high-tech cars just gliding through our cities, and they're pitched as being cleaner, cheaper, and just cooler than the gas cars we're used to. But for a growing number of drivers, that gleaming vision is hitting some serious real-world static. Let's put a number on that static: 22%. A recent McKinsey report from China's auto market, which is one of the biggest in the world for EVs, found that a staggering 22% of pure electric vehicle owners regret their purchase. Now, get this. Just 1 year earlier, that number was only 3%. That's a seven-fold jump in buyer's remorse in a single year. So what on earth is going on? Well, it often starts with the first major shock for a ton of new owners: the daily struggle for power. The dream starts to short-circuit the very first time they need to plug in somewhere that isn't their own garage. And here's the heart of the problem. The infrastructure just can't keep up. In 2023, while EV sales in China shot up by almost 38%, the charging network to support all those new cars only grew by about 35%. Now, you might look at that and think, hey, that's not a huge gap. But here's the thing. When you're adding millions of cars to the road, even a small gap like that creates a massive bottleneck. And this is what that bottleneck actually feels like. Ideally, you'd want one charger for every EV out there. The reality in China is closer to one for every 2.5 cars. And those chargers, they're mostly packed into wealthy areas. This creates a huge charging divide. In the big cities, the regret rate is around 10%, but in smaller cities, it skyrockets to 54%. Think about that. More than half of all owners in those areas wish they'd made a different choice. But the problem isn't just about finding a charger out in the wild. It's about trusting the battery inside your own car to even get you there in the first place. This is range anxiety. We've all heard the term. That mileage you see on the sticker is rarely what you get in the real world. Cold weather can just slash your range, sometimes by up to 40%. Driving at highway speeds, blasting the AC, it all takes a serious toll. And for families that rely on one car for everything, this gap between what was promised and what's real creates constant stress. And that brings us to the second major shock for many EV owners: the hidden costs. The brutal financial reality that a lot of people discover far, far too late. Okay, get this. This is a real-life example of a Tesla owner in China. After 8.5 years, just a little bit outside the warranty period, his battery died. His car's used value was about 160,000 yuan. The cost to replace the battery? A jaw-dropping 220,000 yuan. Yeah, you heard that right. The repair cost more than the entire car was worth. And you can just feel the pain in his own words. He's completely trapped. The cost to fix the car is more than the car itself. I mean, this isn't just an inconvenience. It is a financial nightmare. And this isn't some isolated one-off story. It points to a much bigger problem: depreciation. After 3 years, a typical gasoline car holds on to 60 to 70% of its value. But a new energy vehicle, and that includes pure EVs, can plummet to as little as 20% of its original worth. This is often driven by fears over how long the battery will last and how fast the technology is changing, which makes today's EV feel obsolete tomorrow. It's a massive financial hit that most owners just don't see coming. And it's not always about one catastrophic bill either. For some people, the regret is more like a death by 1,000 cuts. We found stories of owners who sold their EVs and went right back to a gas car simply because of all the persistent, minor glitches that just wore away their trust in the car's quality. So, faced with all these very real challenges, how is the world responding? Well, it turns out the entire ecosystem, from individual drivers all the way up to global superpowers, is learning and adapting on the fly. So on the ground, EV owners have basically become masters of strategy. They use apps to meticulously plan out their routes around charging stations. They make charging at home the absolute default, so they start every single day with a full tank. And they've learned to be opportunistic, topping up their battery while they're at the grocery store, the mall, or the gym. But look, individual coping strategies aren't going to solve the systemic issues. And that's where governments are stepping in, with some major policies designed to push the EV transition forward. And you really see two different paths emerging. On one side, you have China's carrot approach. They're stimulating the market with generous subsidies, offering big bucks to consumers who trade in an old car for a new EV.
Then on the other side, you have Europe's stick, a hard deadline. They've passed a law that flat out bans the sale of new gas and diesel cars starting in 2035. So, with all these challenges and these big government pushes, the market itself is adapting, and it's finding a kind of middle ground, hybrid technologies that are really designed to bridge the gap. And you can see that shift happening right here in the data. This is the market correcting itself in real time. While pure electrics still lead in China, a full 41% of sales are now hybrids. These are those bridge technologies. They offer enough electric range for daily driving, but they keep a small gas engine on board to completely eliminate range anxiety on longer trips. For a lot of people, it's the best of both worlds. So where does all this leave us? It really feels like we're at a crossroads. That initial, almost utopian vision of an all-electric future is getting stress-tested by reality, and it's forcing a big reevaluation of the path forward. It's become crystal clear that the transition to electric isn't as simple as flipping a switch. It's a complex journey, and it's uncovering some deep challenges in our infrastructure, in the battery technology itself, and in the basic economics of ownership that we're really only now beginning to fully understand.
So let's just recap the key takeaways here. First, the pure EV experience is facing some major real-world hurdles. Second, that buyer's remorse we talked about is being driven by very real anxieties around charging, cost, and range. Because of that, these bridge technologies, like hybrids, are surging as a practical alternative, and that's forcing drivers, governments, and car makers all to adapt. Which leaves us with a final, and I think a really crucial question. Are these growing pains just a temporary, bumpy start on the inevitable road to an all-electric world? Or are they a sign that the future of driving isn't about one single technology, but a diverse mix of solutions tailored to the real needs of real drivers? The answer to that is going to define our roads for decades to come.